Hey guys, I'm going to walk you through the data set. I've had a few questions on that, so just want to make it clear for everybody. This is after part 6 of the lab. It's asking you to actually make these calculated columns. So a quick way to do this is double click on that. Again, if you're using Logger Pro, if you're really familiar with another program like Desmos, that's fine. Just make sure it can do all the same functions. Our Logger Pro, our directions for the lab are for Logger Pro. Okay, so we can change these, change your name, your short name, and units. Done. And then this one is V for the capacitor, short name VC, units are in volts. And then if you haven't done this before, if you go up to data and new manual column, it'll give you a new one, which is charge, QC, which is in coulombs, and last one, we've got current in amps. Okay, so the first one is asking you to find the time, okay, and we're going to use the time constant. So remember, tau is equal to resistance times capacitance. Our resistance was 330 ohms, and our capacitance was 100 microfarads, which you have to convert to regular farads. You should have done that in a question before. Okay, so our first one is 0, and then we're just going to do those integers. So 0.5 times the time constant. So 0.5 times 0.033. Okay, so that's where we get 0.0165. And then our time constant times 1 times 1.5 times 2, and hopefully you get the picture on this. I'm just going to stop here. If you're good at making calculated columns, you can enter that too to make it easier, or if you're good at Excel, you can kind of do the calculations for you. Okay, so our voltage across the capacitor as it's charging, remember the equation for that is our Vmax, which was given as 5 volts, and it's our Vmax multiplied by 1 minus e to the negative t over tau. Since our t over tau, we're using our time as the integer, so it would be 0.0165 divided by 0.033, which is going to give us that 0.5 again. And so your exponent ends up being the integer. So we're going to do 5 times, in parentheses, 1 minus e to the negative 0.5, and then e to the negative 1, and then e to the negative 1.5, and so on. Okay, you could do it the other way by using these times and the time constant, but save yourself some work. Okay, so I calculated that out, and I got 1.97 for my first voltage, and then 3.16, 3.88, oops, that's not an 8, 4.32, and I did these calculations already. I'm just copying it down from my handwritten work, and so on. Okay, so if we look at our graph, and the cool part, if you ever want to make these bigger or smaller, we're adding things, if you do Control R, it really nicely organizes it for you. Okay, and if we click on this graph and hit this A, that auto scales it, and you can see this really nice curve here. Okay, and so then we're going to add in a second graph. I didn't do these calculations yet, but we can insert graph, and we want this one to be this over time. Insert graph, and that's going to be our I over time. And once again, instead of trying to manipulate this, Control R, it's like my favorite thing in Logger Pro. I love Logger Pro, but that Control R is pretty awesome. Okay, and then once you have all of that, you're there. And then you can analyze using these curve fits and so on. Okay, hope that helps clarify this data portion.